Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I'd like to call the City of Homestead Committee of the Whole meeting to order. Today is June 8th, 2021, and it is 5:32 p.m. The city will hold a hybrid Committee of the Whole meeting. The public may participate either in person at City Hall or virtually utilizing video conference via WebEx events or at the toll-free conference call number. Please go to cityofhomestead.com/calendar for specific details and instructions on participation using video and telephonic conferencing. The meeting can also be viewed live on the City Access channel or city website at cityofhomestead.com. Public comments can be made in person at the meeting or emailed to publiccomments@cityofhomestead.com. Written public comments on specific agenda items should include your name, address, and the item you would like to comment on and your comment. Those may be submitted by noon Monday, June 7th, and will be included in the minutes. Written public comments on general matters should also include your name and address with the comment and can be submitted up until 30 minutes after the end of this Committee of the Whole meeting and will be included in the minutes. Let's have a roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Fletcher.
Present.
Councilwoman Avila. Councilman Roth.
Here.
Vice Mayor Faircloth Staggers.
Present.
Mayor Losner.
Here. Thank you. Madam Manager, are there any additions, deletions, or deferrals?
No, Mr. Mayor, there are not.
Thank you. Tab 1, our first item of business is approval of the May 11th, 2021 Committee of the Whole minutes. Is there a motion for approval?
Move approval.
Move for approval by Councilman Fletcher, seconded by Councilman Roth. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Next item, tab 2, motion to place car number 3170 on the council agenda, James Archer Smith Park Splash Pad Grant. Is that you, Pedro? Or
That will be me, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. The Homestead Parks and Recreation Department has been awarded a $200,000 grant from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection for the James Archer splash pad. And actually, this is more than a renovation. This is a complete redo of that splash pad. Historically, there have been a great number of maintenance problems at that splash pad. So it is a complete replacement, pumps, filters, underground piping. We don't have the actual cost yet, and we won't have it until such time as we put out an RFP and get the exact specifications, after which we'll come back to council. We think it's less than $400,000 total, but whatever it is, it does require a match. So the match would be up to $200,000. Staff recommends that the mayor and council approve the attached resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement and establish a budget for a grant award of $200,000 from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection for splash pad improvements at the James Archer Smith Park.
Thank you. Any initial questions or comments from council? Okay. Madam Manager, this obviously it's a grant that requires a match, and the package indicates that the match will come from park impact fees. Can you give us an idea, just a ballpark figure? What do we have now set aside in impact fees that I guess would the term be unallocated? I mean, what do we have to draw from? That amount in general.
We'll get back to you. I think I'll be able to get back to you tonight. I don't know it right off the top of my head, but we'll get you the number.
Thank you. Just, for general, that's $400,000 is a lot of money for a splash pad, and I don't want to break the bank
Understood.
For one item. But thank you. All right. I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone online or in the audience wishing to speak on this matter?
None online.
Thank you. Last chance, if you're here in the audience and would like to speak on this matter. Okay, I'll close the public hearing. Ask for a motion for approval.
I'll move approval.
Moved by Councilman Fletcher, seconded by Councilwoman. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Next item. Tab number 3, motion to place car number 3176 on the council agenda, the FDOT Turf and Landscape Maintenance Joint Participation Agreement. Madam Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. The Florida Department of Transportation, FDOT, has offered to partially compensate the City of Homestead $25,988 a year for certain turf and maintenance services of state right-of-way at South Dixie Highway, Chrome Avenue, and Campbell Drive, as described in the attached agreement. This is a renewal of an FDOT agreement. It was initially approved back in October 17th of 2018, and it is under the same terms as before. Staff recommends that the mayor and council approve the attached resolution authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement with FDOT for certain turf and landscape maintenance services of state right-of-way at South Dixie Highway, Chrome Avenue, and Campbell Drive. This is a one-year agreement with 2 additional one-year extensions upon the same terms and conditions and the mutual written consent of both parties.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Fletcher?
Yes, thank you. I understand that this is a partial refund of the funds that we will be spending on this. Do we know what the total annual cost is for for maintaining these areas?
We do, Councilman. For Chrome, it's about $30,000. For US 1, $40,000. For that portion of Campbell, approximately $5,000 to $10,000. So overall, we're looking at $75,000, of which $25,000 would be paid by the state and $50,000 would be on us.
Roughly 30%. Okay. Thank you. That's it, Mr. Mayor.
My observation would be is that we really don't know what the new Campbell maintenance is going to be. Certainly, there's less median and no landscaping in place now. It's just grass between Chrome and US 1.
So the numbers we have were from the previous medians that we had. We
Heavily
had
landscaped
existing
medians.
So
in
once
Campbell.
they re-landscape them,
Right.
we'll start paying that again.
There'll be some time before that kicks in, and you know, I've looked with Mr. Brea at some of those plans, and you know, we've asked, you know, for those to be revisited. Certainly, we can do that again with an eye to you know, aesthetics versus cost of maintenance as well. So thank you. All right. Is there anyone online or in the audience wishing to speak on this matter?
None online.
Okay. Doesn't appear to be any in the audience. Do we have a motion for approval of car number 3176? Moved by Councilwoman Avila, seconded by Councilman Roth. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Next item. It's for discussion. Tab number 4, car number 3188, the American Rescue Plan Act funding. Madam Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item is actually a follow-up to the workshop that we had on this funding, and as you know, the guidelines for the spending of the funding is still a work in progress. Additional public comments are open till July 16th, at which time some of the rules may change, but generally speaking, what we wanted to do is to just confirm the categories for eligible use as discussed at the workshop. We're seeking direction on which categories will be funded with the Homestead American Rescue Plan Act allocation of $19,192,087. The first tranche of funding, $9,596,043.50, has been received by the city, and the final tranche is expected in 12 months. The categories for eligible use are as follows: public health and economic impacts, premium pay for eligible workers, revenue loss, investments in infrastructure. And as you know, there are a number of subcategories that we discussed among those specific categories. And we'd like to confirm that those categories are the categories we'll be following, but we'd also like some direction so that certain programs we could expedite, including a vaccination program. We're not certain of how best to proceed, but if there are those individuals who would be in need of some education with regard to the need for vaccines, and or there was a problem with access to vaccines, we just want to look and understand if there's anything we can do to help some who may still want vaccination. Some have suggested incentive programs. I don't know how the council would feel about that, but we just want a little bit of leeway so we can reach out and find out who and where we may be able to help some people in our city. We are also looking at the question of premium pay. In our one-on-one discussions with the mayor and council, it was clear that it seemed that premium pay was something that we'd be wanting to give to our field personnel. But as we talk about this among staff, we think the field personnel should be those who couldn't work from home. So, for example, a police dispatcher could not work from home, certainly had to come to work. And we would think that's an essential worker. And others who came to work, couldn't work from home include fleet personnel, those who fix our cars. But all in all, we're looking at, if the council does want to have premium pay for eligible workers, approximately 200 employees who were not able to work from home and continued to work through the pandemic. And that's on one side. And then there's also, with regard to police, who are also field personnel, approximately 123 who would be included in that. So that would be 200 plus 123, approximately 323 total. But again, it depends on what the council wants to do and how the council wants to do it. We also talked about the difference between a percentage versus a lump sum payment to everyone. So it's an item that's open for discussion, and we're just looking for direction.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Any initial thoughts from council? Councilwoman?
Thank you, Mayor. I think that making vaccinations accessible is very important. However, I'd like to confirm that we're not duplicating efforts. Have we reached out to our Team Homestead platform and verified that some of the resources that we have there on that platform are not doing the same thing? We're winding down with the COVID crisis, and perhaps there's an opportunity to kind of let them take the reins on that, and we can allocate the funds in a different way. With regards to premium pay, I'm fine with that recommendation. That's for now.
Thanks, Councilwoman. And actually, part of what we want to do is to get answers to that very question that you asked about Team Homestead and or other groups who have been very active in trying to get people vaccinated. We don't want to just say we're going to do an education program, because you're absolutely right. We don't want to repeat what others are doing. We just want some leeway to see if there is something that should be done, we're able to do it.
Did it? Okay. Councilman Fletcher?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to apologize for being unable to make the workshop last week. I was on another call during that time period, but I did send the manager a couple of items that I think we definitely have to maintain our focus on. And I want to make sure that we are thinking outside of the box when we're looking at spending these funds. You know, there's a lot of people out there with the same amount of money, you know, spreading these different projects across the realm, and I want to make sure that we're utilizing it where it needs to be utilized, for one, with a priority on the mental health side of the house. And then when it comes to premium pay, I think it just needs to be fair and equitable across the board, whoever we decide who does it or who is going to get it, that, you know, it's the same thing, you know, percentage-wise. And with that, I would also offer that we do this sooner rather than later, before the holiday time period, if we're capable of doing so. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. I would, Madam Manager, echo both of my colleagues' comments. I want to be careful that we're not duplicating efforts, but I don't want to give other groups our money just to not use fruitfully either. You know, it's easy to sit here and pontificate that anybody who wanted to be vaccinated could have been vaccinated by now, but that's probably not reality, and we need to you know, touch base with those other community organizations and see how we can get the biggest bang for those dollars. With respect to the premium pay, I know that you know, some of our workforce who had to go to work, we have a group that really didn't have the benefit of having a lot of overtime available or prior federal allocations to premium pay. And I'd like to see us take care of that group first, who have been, I guess there's no other way to say it other than been left out, and certainly I would support a lump sum. I think we can generalize that many of those folks are not at the top end of the pay scale at the city, and it would be fair and a nice gesture. So certainly as to those field workers, those out in the fields, a consideration of a lump sum across the board. At some point, we'll have to come and revisit and analyze whether there's been parity among police officers and other employees. But I know that I believe there's a feeling out there that while others have financially benefited, the other group has not, and I think that's the group we need to address first.
Would the council like to suggest the lump sum number?
I would suggest $1,000 per.
Mayor,
Councilwoman, sorry.
who else is online? Do we have Bailey and just Vice Mayor? Not just Vice Mayor, but so I really would prefer to have a fuller quorum for this topic. Are we setting up another workshop anytime soon for this particular subject?
We are absolutely setting up another workshop. As we mentioned, after the July 16th comment period closes, we're going to be scheduling a workshop after that. And we could certainly wait until then, because it's not very far away.
A lump sum number recommendation, I think right now for me to make one now would be, it wouldn't be wise. I'd have to do more research, ask more questions, and I'd like to have more conversation with my colleagues.
Well, then certainly, if this item, and again, I view this as very preliminary. There are a lot of unanswered questions that need to be answered by folks higher up the food chain before we open up other programs. I think, management's suggesting that there are those who were required to come to work during the height of the pandemic, have not received the financial benefit from that other of our employees have. What was the percentage premium that the police department, the police officers on the street got? Was it 1 or 1.5?
It was 1%.
1%.
It was 1%, and there's an additional money for that piece of hazard pay, because as you may recall, when we did our CARES Act funding, we were able to move around categories to ensure that all that the city was given, we were able to spend, but for hazard pay. We were not allowed to reallocate those dollars. So when we estimated the hazard pay, we estimated high. So subsequently, we were advised by the county, after the 1% was given, we were advised by the county that the money that wasn't spent, we could again give to police officers for hazard pay, which we intend to do.
And certainly if we were to make a decision tonight that was approved in final form at the council meeting next week, would not preclude us from coming back and making additional allocations from within the $19 million for premium pay or hazard pay.
No, absolutely not. In fact, tonight there's one other thing I want to mention. Tonight we really just wanted to touch on a couple of things that the council may want to see happen sooner rather than later. We completely agree we won't do anything with vaccinations if it looks like it's duplicating efforts. But there's also a summer camp at the Cybrarium, which we'd like to be able to provide funding for Zach, correct me if I'm wrong, how many kids? For 16 kids to be able to participate in this program. And the cost of that would be $9,000. And we're thinking that under the category where we have youth assistance, that would be an applicable use of these funds. So there's just a couple of little things like that we thought sooner rather than later we should start to do. But the premium pay, for sure, it doesn't have to be decided tonight. We can wait on that and do as the council wishes.
Well, I would suggest that if this portion of the council that's present and online tonight is not comfortable moving forward, perhaps it would be helpful that without putting identities to it, give us an itemization of the dollar amounts that the various folks who already received hazard pay, what those amounts were, and I know that was based on a percentage of base pay, and we're talking here about potentially a lump sum, and see how that range would compare to a given lump sum for the other side of the house.
We can absolutely do that, yes. And we can include the additional hazard pay as well.
Sure. Thank you.
And if you may indulge me, Mayor and Council, I just want to read what the summer camp program is so that you're aware of it. It's a magic summer camp. It's done through Miami-Dade College and encourage high school students to embark on transformational experience through animation and 3D game design. The summer camp focuses on storytelling, 3D modeling, coding, game design, character animation, and creating interactive simulations for virtual and augmented reality. The camp runs for 2 weeks. It would be open to 16 students each week. The fee per student is normally $395 per week, or $600 for 2 weeks. If the city were to sponsor the student fees, it would be a total of $9,600 for the 2 weeks. And as you know, anything that we do with these dollars has to be COVID related. And we believe that the nexus between the inability to attend certain things like this and so many things that were canceled, and now that was how these kids were affected by COVID, that it's something that we can be able to do. And also, anytime a question comes up, what we're doing is submitting those questions to the Treasury Department to ensure that we have some guidance. So, just an FYI.
So potentially that's 32 kids for 9,000, 16 a week, 2 different sessions.
Yes, correct. Correct.
Yeah. And it seems that could fall under the umbrella of prevention of youth violence, keeping them, particularly older teenagers, high school age teenagers, late middle school age teenagers, off the streets and occupied for at least a couple of weeks during the summer.
Yeah,
Seems to
and
clearly fall within
yes.
some of those guidelines.
Yes, sir, and that's where we put it, under youth assistance. We had talked about summer jobs and things like that, violence prevention. Yes, that's where it would fall under.
Council? Councilman Roth.
Thank you, Mayor. All of this sounds pretty good to me. I don't remember from the workshop if you broke out the dollar amounts that each category was going to be allotted, so we could actually break down how much money we would have for the premium pay and other programs. And one of the things that's pretty close to my heart is the business assistance stuff. And at the last workshop, I asked if we could find out how many businesses actually were affected and actually have gone out of business within the city limits, so that we can use that information to either approach them and see if we can help them, or use that information in the future to help others, that if we do ever face a catastrophe like COVID again, we can be there to support our business community. So if that information is not available tonight, I'd still like to get that information to see how many we actually lost during COVID, and if there's anything we could have done to help them during the process, so we can plan for the future as well. So,
And also, Councilman, just to clarify, there's no set number for any of these fields. The council can make that determination. So going forward, if we realize over the next several months that that's where the biggest need is, we can be guided accordingly. There's no set amount. And in fact, when we suggested any amounts, it was really just to show that this is something that it could potentially look like. But we don't have any sense at all as to how much money should go in each category.
do you sense that there is a need for immediate relief with premium pay, where if we were to allocate $1,000 per employee tonight, which sounds like to me about $300,000, which is a drop in the bucket to the total that we received? Or can we wait for a later date to make that determination, whether it be $1,000, $1,500, $2,000, based on, it, the information that we have, based on what they may have gone through, and we want to obviously acknowledge them for helping us keep this city going. So I'm kind of surprised the number is that big, 300 employees that could not work from home during that time. But obviously we have parks, we have solid waste, we have, linemen and a lot of different people that have to go, and they do hands-on type jobs. So could we do that tonight? Is there are they desperate for this money, or is it something we can wait and reward them even maybe greatly or with waiting?
I think even in accordance with Councilwoman Avila's suggestion that wanting more information, we can absolutely get you more information. We can get the numbers as the mayor asked, and I don't think that anybody's expressing a desperate need, because I would suggest that not everybody even knows about this. So we can absolutely wait.
Fair enough. So just the only thing I'm looking for from the prior discussion is if we can get a hold of how many businesses we've actually lost during COVID. I'd be interested to see if we lost any and which ones and what types of businesses. And those, I know you mentioned Mitchell Hardware the other day as one of those businesses that we lost. But if it's one, it's bad enough. But if that's the only one, that sounds pretty good to me too.
We should have that by the council meeting.
Thank you.
Oh, and just to reiterate, as to these other categories, again, the phrase I use, there's too many unanswered questions for us to really put meat on the bones of that framework as to what's going where, because I know our staff is continually submitting questions to the Treasury Department as to, specific needs. Councilwoman?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm in agreement. I'd like to have the information that Councilman Roth is asking for. I do think that even if it's a low number of businesses that are the result of that inquiry, the opportunity of the new businesses not being able to come to Homestead is what I'm thinking is going to be the greater loss. With the Showbiz Cinema and all the infrastructure investments we've done in hopes for a very fabulous 2020, the losses of all those opportunities. We're not going to see that in data and see that really in writing. But talking about the Cybrarium summer camp, I really love that idea. I think that it's exciting to hear that that's coming into fruition. But I'm wondering why we aren't going about funding that through the local civic clubs and the civic organizations that typically do this. They fund summer camps for children. Have we put out this information to the local civic organizations to see if they want to help fund that project?
We have not put it out. It's a Miami-Dade College program. And when they talked to us about it and told us about it at the Cybrarium, we thought if there was a way the city could potentially help, that's what we would want to do. And then when the American Rescue dollars came up, we thought that it was an appropriate use. But we did not put it out to any other groups.
Okay, I would recommend that we try to find funding for that through sources that we know are committed to making those kinds of impacts. Speaking to what Councilman Shelley mentioned at the workshop, sprinkling the money everywhere and not really focusing it in targeted ways, and let's say, for example, using the money primarily for revising our code or developing our downtown, and just sprinkling 9,000 here, 10,000 here, 100,000 here and there, are we really going to make a big enough impact where we're using this money in the best way possible? So I'd like to try to find ways to fund the things we want to do in other ways before we touch the American Rescue Plan funds, if possible. So we can use the bulk of this money to get the biggest impact in the target areas.
Thank you, Mr.
Mayor, if I may weigh in a little bit.
Sure, Vice Mayor, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I'm in agreement with the commentary from my colleagues relative to the COVID vaccinations. I feel like we can get support for that in nonprofits. I support the premium pay. I think we need to have more conversations about what that will look like. What I also want to put on the table is there has been conversations about reducing gun violence, and although I understand and support the recommendation to invest in youth programming, because I believe cities should invest in education in our community, I also understand that those kids who are carrying AK-47s, they're not trying to participate in the summer camp at the Cybrarium. So on June 4th, there were several nonprofit organizations who have a track record of working to reduce gun violence. They had a press conference in front of the Stephen P. Clark Center, and they referenced the amount of money, the funding that Homestead was receiving, and they were calling on municipalities and the county to have conversations about utilizing some of those funds to invest in support nonprofits who are committed to reducing gun violence. We already know it's a hot summer. It's going to be a hot summer. We've seen all the shootings and killings on the news, and a lot of them are from youth. So I think we need to perhaps have a conversation about, are we willing to support and commit utilizing some of these funds to help reduce gun violence? I just don't want for us to be thinking about funding projects that we really didn't have the money for, but this is an opportunity. So, putting everything together to support that, or funding projects that we just had aspirations for, but we never had the money. So we need to be really, really intentional about this and making sure that we're having an impact and utilizing these funds as it has been designed. So I feel like reducing gun violence, that is another pandemic. So I just want us to have a conversation at our next workshop about whether we're willing to support that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Councilman Fletcher?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just offer up that, you're going to have 7 different ideas up here on how we're going to spend, how we can utilize this money for our community. And I would ask that the staff take a hard look at the different options that are available to us out there and provide us with a targeted allocation for each one of those areas. Again, we can discuss that at a later time frame during the workshops, but I think if you provide us with a guideline or an outline of where we think the money is needed the most, and of course, look at these other programs and things that are out there, as well as looking at what some of the other municipalities are doing with this funding, I think that will garner us a lot of additional information here over the next few weeks as we move forward. So I would like to see like an outline of those high priority items, and we can look at the funds that are available and we can jockey them around, I think, as a group. But if we can get that on paper so we kind of see the numbers in front of us black and white, I think that would work out best for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. So, Madam Manager, I guess the direction you got tonight was no direction, other than to bring back some more information.
But what we can do, we got direction to bring some direction. What we can do is come back and, as best we can, discern where the greatest need is, and certainly, to the Vice Mayor's suggestion, we can include in the workshop the discussion of reducing gun violence, and maybe in the meantime get a sense of the nonprofits that were mentioned, because as you may recall, nonprofits are a category that's included in the different categories. So we'll get more information and we'll bring it back to you for sure.
Thank you, Manager. And I don't know why we just can't call it violence, whether it be drug, gang, or domestic. Let's not target the flavor of the week, gun violence. And I read the same articles online this morning or last night that I think the Vice Mayor is referencing. And you know full well my concerns of when we give money to these not-for-profits who come down and claim to be able to do things, and they leave with our money and we never see them again. And I'm sorry, when people use the term evidence-based, that makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up, because you can make statistics say whatever you want to make them say. So what I'm saying is that if this do-gooder group shows up and there's a recommendation to give them money and we don't know anything about them and they make all these claims, I'm not going to be on board with that. That money needs to stay right here in our community. And I agree to a certain extent with what Councilman Shelley pointed out last week, that we need to make sure that we don't spread our money too thin. That when this is all said and done, we put enough money in each pile to make a big difference. But I took part in a lot of food distributions early on and throughout the pandemic. And someone made a comment, I think, to the effect that we maybe weren't making that big of a difference by just sending 32 kids to camp for a week or 2 weeks. I want to make the analogy that I saw where when I handed folks a loaf of bread, that made a real difference in their life. And you can make a real difference in these kids' lives by sending them to this library for a couple of weeks and perhaps getting them out of harm's way of other people doing whatever category of violence you want to talk about. So, you know, we've got $19.5 million. That's a lot of money. And we can afford, and I don't mean this in a demeaning way, to sprinkle some crumbs out there, because you never know what impact that's going to make on someone's life. But I know in the big picture, we've got to be very judicious and make sure that what we allocate is well spent. But let's don't dismiss the opportunity of those 16 or 32 kids to go to camp for a couple weeks at our cybrarium. That could be just as meaningful to them as, you know, that box of food, the loaf of bread, or helping a business get back on its feet with a lot more than $395 for a week. So, you know, I think we've got to strike a little balance here.
Well, how does this sound? If it's the will of the council, I think based on the conversation tonight, that it probably makes the most sense for us to gather as much as we can, ask more questions to the Treasury Department, have those answers, and come back with the information at the next workshop, as opposed to next week. Does that make sense to the council?
That's fine with me.
If I may.
Vice Mayor,
If I may.
yes.
Yes, thank you. I think this is very healthy discussion. I mean, it is a discussion, and I think it's very important for everyone to put their ideas on the table. I support the librarian. I think if there's anyone in council that would support that, it would be me, and I love the idea. I just put it on the table for us to have that conversation. And I think anything that we do and any funds that we allocate to anyone has to be properly vetted. I agree with you 100%, Mayor, because you'll have a lot of people coming out saying they do this and do that, but there's no really solid metrics to substantiate their work. So we're on the same page with that one. But I just wanted to put that on the table about these conversations, because it was noted how much we were receiving. If we don't allocate any money, I mean, we just don't. But I think it's very important that all of us are able to put our ideas on the table. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
The only,
Thank you. Not only do I agree with the Cybrarium project being an awesome opportunity for the 16 or 32 children, I actually am willing to volunteer to find the funds through our civic clubs. If we don't have staff, we don't have a community liaison, as I've pointed out in the past, that can do that. But if we need $9,000 and we need it by what date, maybe I can find it.
whatever the council would like us to do with that, just let me know.
My point is that there are other pots of money. And early on, when we were discussing the inclusive plan and diversity within our community, engaging with our nonprofits and making that relationship stronger between government and nonprofit will help us save money. And so spending that $9,000 and getting the job done is what I'm asking us to do, but not spending it from this pile of money. And the 4 piles of money, or 4 envelopes that I'd like to split the money in, if you're still looking for direction, is police, parks, policy, and what's the other one that I mentioned last time?
I'm sorry, I didn't know what you meant when you said policy and police and parks.
right? The 4 categories that
Oh,
I
I'm
mentioned
sorry.
last time. Because
I can read them again if you like. Okay,
Please.
of course. Public health and economic impacts, premium pay for eligible workers, revenue loss, investments in infrastructure. And again, these are not our categories. These are the categories that are included in the act. And under each of those categories are the items that the council members have mentioned, as has staff.
I'm referring to the categories that I referenced at the last meeting, at the last workshop.
You mean the subcategories under those categories? I can read you the ones that were suggested in the car item. Those are those that are in italics, the additional ones. I'm not sure I can say with certainty all of the specific ones that you said, but I can say with certainty what was mentioned by all of the council people. Investments in businesses, assist with startup costs such as impact fees, make it easier for businesses to open. First-time home buyers, review possible repayment restrictions if property is sold in less than 10 years. Food assistance, assistance for rejoining the workforce, including mental health and wellness programs, address the rewriting of the city code, process and funding, address inconsistencies in the code in order to promote business development and enhancement, fund additional support for community policing to decrease violence, improve mental health, fund a community liaison position, if not full-time, maybe shorter time period so people know what help is available. How much of the funding will be allocated for essential workers? Does this list cover those eligible workers who are to be included in the program? Park improvements, sports complex, Harris, J.D. Red, Ruby George, outdoor activity. Utility revenue loss, will this be considered under revenue losses under the IFR? Currently, it's not. And water quality system upgrades, provide funding for infrastructure that will provide the biggest impact on investment. And these were in addition to the other items that were already mentioned at the workshop.
Thank you. It sounds like we've given you a lot of direction, and this is the first conversation since our only workshop we've had so far, and it's a lot of money. So I think that giving us the time to get the answers to the questions that we're asking so we can have that follow-up discussion is a healthy and appropriate way to go about it. So with regards to the Cybrarium, I'd like to fund the program. When do you need to have the money by?
What Zach said is that and again, this is not our program, it's Miami-Dade College's program, and they want us to let them know if we were going to help fund that portion of it by this Friday.
Would you be able to accept subsidy donations from nonprofits if we proceed in agreement with the program?
From a legal perspective, I don't know the answer because it's not really the city. It would be with Miami-Dade College. I don't know, Matt, if you can opine on that.
So the funding would be going directly to the college?
Presumably so.
Then we can, I don't know what rules the college has. Generally, you can solicit donations for charitable or governmental purposes. You just can't do it you can't restrict the solicitation to your vendors and businesses. It has to be sort of community-wide. So in this instance, it seems like we wouldn't even be a party to it. If Dade County is comfortable, if the college is comfortable accepting the donation, then that's your answer.
Or, since it is kind of short notice, what if, Councilwoman, another thought is if the CRA funded it, and then it's not impacting the rescue fund dollars. And then going forward, we could certainly, when we know about something, certainly make the council aware if there are nonprofits that can help, then we can help with making them aware of it. I mean, we were simply made aware of the program by Miami-Dade and thought it'd be great if we could somehow find a way to help.
I have no objection to CRA funding it.
I hope the CRA doesn't either.
Oh, I do, because I know we've looted that organization for years to fill budget holes, and that's why we don't have a lot of good redevelopment in the Southwest. $9,000 out of our $19.5 million allocation is crumbs. And from where I sit, there's no reason not to do that in good faith.
Mr. Mayor. Yeah, as you can see, we all are going to have some different ideas here, and this can become very bureaucratic very quickly. I think that you know, we need to go ahead and fund some of these items on a quick basis if we can. And then after the fact, if some of these other organizations would like to offset those funds, would they be able to donate funds back to the city that we could put back into that account if those organizations wanted to do that?
The city could accept, however, with respect to this particular fund and the accounting principles with the Recovery Act funds and whether we can accept the outside donation, there are certain parameters on the donation of receipts. I'd have to check. I don't know if we can take outside money and roll it into the Recovery Act fund because there's auditing involved with that. And I don't know if we're permitted to take on outside revenue sources. I'd have to look.
I appreciate that answer, and that's what I was expecting, but we have other programs in the city that we could take those funds and put them into,
Sure.
you know, as an offset, for lack of a better term. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Right. Programs that could have been funded from the rescue plan, we solicit donations to go back into city, the general city coffers to continue to do that. Councilman.
Thank you, Mayor. Not to beat a dead horse, but I'm going to. The college is looking just for a commitment right now. Is that what you said, City Manager? So we just need to give them commitment. So there's no money that needs to be switched hands at this time. And they're going to open up this program to 16 students each week. Maybe, I mean, and I like the idea of nonprofits working in tandem with other businesses and the municipality, but maybe we can reach out through the philanthropic part of what we do and see if we can increase the number of students to the program, and the nonprofits could then deal directly with the college and make that donation to the college by increasing the number of students. So there is no weirdness with the money we receive from the government and worrying about how we use CRA funds. And then in the future, if we know about these programs, whether it be through the city or through private organizations, then we reach out directly to them and see how we can help them and try to bring the collaboration of the nonprofits together to strengthen what we want to do as a city and help other people. So I think that might be the solution at this time, is make the commitment for the 16 that we got from the city for the $9,000. And if it's simply a commitment that they need, we can reach out, and we've got time to help the college increase the number of students that will participate. I think that's the right thing to do.
I think Zach can correct me if I'm wrong, Councilman. I don't know that we can increase the number of students.
Not us.
No, I don't think they can. I think that they're quite limited to what they can do, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that's correct. The space being used can only accommodate 16 students maximum, so that's why we have that limitation as far as the number of students at this time. Their hope is that if this first year is successful, they can grow the program either at the Cyberium or in another larger space. This is the first time that a program like this from Miami-Dade College is being offered in South Dade.
Sure. I mean, you could always expand the time frame too. Instead of putting 24 kids in the program, expand it another week if that was the option of the college. This is their program. Their request was what would the city do. I understand what Councilwoman Avila is trying to create, and I agree with the everyone coming together for the betterment of the city, for the children in the city, and to provide more access through private funding versus always coming back to the city and asking the city for the dollars. There's plenty of organizations that are willing to make donations, whether it be 500,000, whatever, to accumulate enough to put these programs together for others. So that's where I'm good with that. So I'm good with funding the program for the Cyberium, for Miami-Dade College, through the monies we receive from the federal government, and moving on to the next topic. Thank you, Mayor.
So where does that leave us? Oh, well, right now it does. We can give you some thoughts, but nothing official. Is he going to be back?
I believe he'd be right back.
Okay. Councilwoman.
I'm fine with that. I'd like to make the commitment. I would just also like the opportunity to try to get some civic funding towards the program to reduce what we're pulling out of the American Rescue Plan funds. I don't like how we're starting to spend, even if it's small amounts of money, we're starting to spend it already, and we have until 2024 to spend it all. So there's no immediate rush. It's not like we're rebuilding housing development with the money that fell apart from COVID. So, you know, I want to do the program for the kids at the Ciberium. I'm okay with making the commitment, and I'll make the motion to go ahead and secure that funding. But can I work with staff to make those connections with Civic?
Absolutely,
All right.
absolutely.
That's all I'm asking for. Thank you.
And also, I think before you make the motion, let's just for the moment, and I completely agree and hear you that there is time to spend the money. The only reason we brought up the vaccinations in this item was because if we're going to do something, then now is the time to do that. What we'll try to do with regard to the vaccination is before the council meeting, try to get some of those answers in terms of what would be a duplication of efforts and maybe what could possibly help if there are those out there who want vaccinations. We'll try to do that before the council meeting. And with that, I'll be quiet.
Thank you. So just for the sake of the motion, what's the exact amount for the summer camp?
$9,600 for the 2 weeks.
All right. Did someone wish to make a motion?
I'll move it.
And the motion is to allocate $9,600 to the summer camp. All right, very good. Do we have a second? Second from Councilman Fletcher. All right, Matt, do we need a roll call or can we just do a voice vote?
No, this, absolutely not.
All right. Is there anyone online or in the audience wishing to speak on this matter?
I don't see anybody online, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. All right, all in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Discussion on Old City Hall site.
Thank you, Mayor. In recent months, staff has received a number of inquiries regarding the site and is now seeking guidance from council on how to proceed. Prior to the pandemic, staff had intended to attend the annual International Council of Shopping Centers, the ICSC conference, with the goal of attracting interest in the site. At that time, specifically for the development of a mixed-use residential and commercial project. The ICSC conference was canceled due to the pandemic and is now rescheduled for this December. The site encompasses approximately 16 acres. It includes the old City Hall building, the old County Library, the old Customs Service building, and the former gas station site. This is an item for discussion on the council's ideas for the potential development of the old City Hall site.
Thank you. Council? Go ahead, Councilwoman.
Bring on the ideas. I'm excited to see whatever anybody wants to bring forward as concepts and ideas.
Thank you. Well, in that regard, Madam Manager, were you looking for sort of a mini visioning session as to our thoughts on what each of us would like to see for that site? What were the parameter? What was your thought process on this?
Well, the thought process was really because almost a year ago, when the idea was to go to the ICSC conference with that concept in mind, we wanted to get an understanding if the council had the same idea for that site, mixed use, residential, commercial, and if so, attend the conference, I don't know, or put something out on this property. It's really, we're looking for your thoughts on it and If you think that a mini conference is something we should do, we could do that, but we're just really looking for how we can proceed in the direction the council wants us to do and do it in a timely manner.
Thank you. Councilman Fletcher.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, I know there has been some recent interest in that property, and I think that the timing is absolutely right now to put whatever it is out that we want to have. I'm in favor of looking at many different types of options for that parcel. However, that it's been there for quite some time as a vacant piece of land with a building that has some hazards in it that we need to rectify, prior to, of course, doing anything with it. Do we actually own that property free and clear, no loans, no mortgages, anything on that property?
No, there is a lien on that property. Yes, we don't.
Okay.
There is. There's a debt that has to be satisfied for that property.
It's probably a pretty sizable debt.
Yes, sir.
At some point, we're going to need to discuss what that is and how we're going to move forward with that. But I think the timing for development of that site is now. I think we're in the midst of a potential issue in the future when it comes to corporate type real estate parcels. So I would be looking to getting any type of interest that we have out there and let them provide us some ideas, and let's move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. I would agree. There's no time like the present. We've already missed a couple of booms. This property's been in conversation off and on since the late 1990s. I recently had the opportunity to finally, after looking for my own set of copies for many, many years, see a conceptual drawing of what the Leftmark group, well, I think you were on council when they came in, and there was a thought of building in a new city hall and a new library, and and again, granted, 22 years ago, the world of shopping centers and retail and commercial was entirely different than it was today. But this is not a new concept. But and I will tell you that I've met with at least 3, possibly 4 different groups who have contacted me to make inquiry as to interest in development of that property. So with that, I want to turn to Mr. Pearl and ask. I know that there's a particular set of statutory guidelines that exist for that property because it lies within the CRA. It's not CRA owned, but lies within the boundaries of the community redevelopment area. So, I'll say, and I'm aware that we have actually received a proposal, a general proposal for further discussion. So where does that put us from a statutory standpoint as to our obligations in light of that proposal being submitted, or the inquiry being, a formal proposal or inquiry being submitted?
Okay. The inquiry being submitted isn't really the trigger for the proposal. If it's the will of the council to dispose of property that's located within the CRA, then under Florida statutes, you have to publish a notice notifying people. It has to be you have to give a 30-day window for other interested parties to submit their proposals. Now, we can be specific in what we're looking for in that notice if we want to be. We don't have to be, and we can see what the market brings to us and make just circulate the notice that we're interested in disposing of the property and accept proposals during that 30-day window. One other issue that will have to be addressed because of the size of the property at some point in the future, and doesn't have to be done right now, is the county code requires county approval over the disposition of municipal governmental property greater than 10 acres. And we can start that process when we have an idea of what we're going to be doing, because they're reviewing it for their comp plan consistency. And they're going to be looking for some details as to what would be placed on that property. So that's getting ahead of ourselves for now, and as we've done for each of the properties that we've disposed of within the CRA, just the simple 163 notice with as much detail, and I mean, I heard Councilman Fletcher say, let's see what the market brings. If that's the will of the council, then we don't have to be specific with the type of development we want. If there is something specific that you're looking for, we can provide a little more detail in the notice as to the type of development that you are interested in seeing.
And I think that's the fork in the road, because I think I heard from two of my colleagues tonight, bring it on, let's see the ideas. And I guess the fork in the road is if we are going to put that notice out there, are we going to let the market bring its ideas, or are we going to establish some parameters within that notice? Is that a fair assessment?
It is, but you are not married to any single proposal. This is not like the award of a bid. You have all of the discretion in the world once you see the proposals to decide that you like what you've seen, you don't like what you've seen, provide guidance to the proposers. The statute simply requires that you provide the public and potential redevelopers with notice of your intent to dispose of the property and allow them to put their proposals forward. You're not required to take the highest price. You can take, you can select the one that you feel is in the best interest of the CRA, or the best interest of the city under the parameters of the statute. So you have all the flexibility in the world under the statute. It's really what your will is. You can put it out broadly, see what you get, and if you want to subsequently try and narrow that and seek RFPs for specific, you can do that as well.
So we have the opportunity to massage any number of the proposals down to the one that's the most acceptable, I guess, for lack of better expression. Now,
yes, sir.
How does that, since we do have and I'll use the word proposal in hand, how does that, because it was done without the notice, would it have to be resubmitted during that 30-day notice period?
Well, it depends. You might get something more specific. You have a proposal, a letter of interest in the property for its potential redevelopment, but you may see that the interested party may put a little bit more meat on the bones in terms of the price, the financing, the substance, a little more detail about the substance of what would be developed on the parcel. And we can request those types of details in the notice as we solicit the proposals.
Thank you. So I guess Councilwoman, did you want to chime in?
Well, when I was expressing bring it on, I'm excited. I really want to see what Vegas can bring to this type of property. When is that trip?
If we go, it's scheduled for December of this year.
December. I wish it was sooner. You're saying there's a proposal already in hand. I wouldn't object to see it, but I don't want to waste investors' time and money and planning and putting things together and reviewing that if we ultimately want to see what Vegas has to offer. I think that we have a real opportunity right now to see which direction our country as a whole is going to be shifting as a result of COVID, and how that reshapes the commercial market, and how we use this experience with COVID to redesign the way we invest and utilize these properties. So I'd like to take it to Vegas. I'm excited about that.
Councilman Roth?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not too excited about the word dispose of properties that are within the city, that the city owns. This is a city asset. We sell this asset off, we never get it back. If we sell it for $25 million, the $25 million is gone. So I don't even know if proposing a RFP or even thoughts would or should include selling the land, but using it and creating a annuity for the future generations that will be in this city, and using that revenue in perpetuity of just selling the land off. I calculated a little bit more than 16 acres there, unless I'm missing something. The City Hall property and the attached vacant lot to the west, to me, according to the county tax roll, was about 25 acres in itself. So I don't know if the 16 acres is an accurate number or if we're cutting off a portion of the property to retain it or whatnot. So I looked this information up before I came tonight because I wasn't sure of how many acres were actually there. And if I calculate it, it's closer to 31 acres. There's a part of it that crosses First Road on the corner on the north side adjacent to Campbell Drive. So, but there again, I'm still torn on the fact that we're considering selling off probably one of the most valuable assets the city owns without having a huge discussion on what we really want to do with it. Selling the property to me is not in the best interest of the city, but creating a long-term leasing program for the dirt for a developer to build and make money and profit on is, I think, a better alternative. And it creates a stream of revenue for the city versus a large cash infusion that could be squandered by anybody. At least the money is guaranteed for many, 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 many years to come. That's my thought for now. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman.
Councilman,
Mr.
if
Pearl,
I
did you
may?
need to-
On the size of the property, we have a survey. It is 16 acres, a little bit over 16 acres. When you look at the property appraisal, one of the parcels, if you pull out and you look at the map, does include a large piece of Harris Field. So for whatever reason back then, when they put it under one folio number, it includes a piece of the old City Hall and a piece of Harris Field. And that's why if you just add up the folios, it will come out to a larger parcel.
And
Matt?
unrelated to the size of the parcel, but I did want to touch on Councilman Roth's point. The use of the word disposition comes directly from the statute, but the notice would be required whether you were selling the underlying fee or leasing the land. It's the disposition of a property interest. So if you were leasing this, the statutory process would be the same for notice purposes.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Matt.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman?
Yeah, just a couple of things. So it is an asset of the city. Again, I kind of agree with Councilman Roth that it's one of those, it's a very tough decision when you go to sell something. But right now, it's also a liability to the taxpayers of the city, not only from the debt that we owe on the property, but as well as, somebody gets injured, things of that nature. I don't know if you've looked at the corner of that property lately, but there's a huge pump station right there on the very corner of US 1. It's actually an eyesore as you drive through our city limits. So I think there's some opportunity there. Whatever we decide to do with this property, I think the opportunity is there to put it out for people to provide us with some ideas. Doesn't mean we have to take them, but I think it's time that we move forward. I mean, we do have some issues on the backside of the property. We have some homeless people that still continue to live in those wooded areas behind the old library area, and here we are in a time of a pandemic, and we don't want to be out there, going and constantly telling these people to move along because some of them need help. So there's a lot of opportunities here to fix what I think is really an eyesore portion of the city, the most valuable piece of property that the city owns. But there's an option here that we can look at and provide an overall outlook that's going to be better for the community. That's all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Fletcher. And, to your point, Councilman, some trepidation about potentially selling it, as opposed to lease. I view it a little bit differently. One of the reasons this building sits where it is because a prior council I sat on recognized that property was too valuable not to have on the tax rolls. It was the most premier piece of property in this town, and we needed to begin positioning it to produce tax revenue, sales tax, and electrical, water, and wastewater revenues and jobs for our city. So even if it were sold, that is the annuity that goes on forever. And let's keep in mind, certainly, and again, let's talk about a sale. Just as we do land use approvals that are married to a site plan approval and sometimes architecture, that you only get this if you do that, that's what we will be talking about there. We're not going to convey or dispose of that asset without having hard and fast timelines and obligations for what will be there in perpetuity, potentially. We're not going to let it go and say you do whatever you want to do. I view a sale as an opportunity of this property and other city property potentially to fund the park that's sorely needed on the east side. And I'm going to be bringing an ordinance in, I think next week, where at least this council is going to make the commitment that to the extent that there are proceeds from the disposition of any number of city park properties, we're not going to throw them in the general fund to be frittered away. They're going to be allocated to a specific public use. So I guess my point is whichever way we go with this, there will have to be those protections built in. Now, as to Las Vegas, yeah, we all want to go to Las Vegas. It's a really neat trip. I went in 2007. But putting that notice out there now does not preclude Las Vegas. We have a whole city to market. And in the past, when we've gone to Las Vegas and marketed our community to those who were there looking for opportunity, we were marketing our own properties as well as our city in general. So one course of action does not preclude marketing our city and promoting our community to those who wish to invest who gather in Las Vegas. It's not a mutually exclusive concept. So, you know, we're not foreclosing that for this. And we've been out of that building for how long? 8 years? More or less 8 years. Councilman Fletcher's right. It's derelict. They're homeless. Kate's gotten emails and texts from me on Sunday afternoon. You wouldn't believe all the guys that are living here and the shopping carts full of junk. That's the gateway to our community. And you're right. That pump station is an eyesore. A shuttered building is an eyesore. It can't remain. And I would like us to at least go forward and have an idea of what the market is offering. And as our attorney advised us, we have the opportunity to massage one or more of those proposals into something that's acceptable, or we can walk away from all of them. But, you know, proverbially that journey of 1,000 miles starts with that one step. And I'd like to see us at least take that step to put it out there in a legal perspective to begin to have that bigger picture conversation. Vice Mayor, would you like to join the conversation?
Sorry, I've been listening along to the conversation. I am in agreement of the multiple pathways to determining how we, I don't want to say dispose of the property, but I am very, very much in favor of putting it out, going out to the Recon Conference to market it, and there are other opportunities to market it as well, but I just want to put on the record that I am in favor of that approach. I think that is a marquee place in our community. It's very high profile, high visibility, and we need to explore all options in order to determine the next steps for it. And I support the Recon Conference.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. So I guess I'll pose this to both the attorney and the manager. You need some direction to go ahead and publish that notice to start the 30-day clock running? We have a motion to that effect.
I'll make the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Moved by Councilman Fletcher, and I would be happy to second that. It's time to get moving. Mr. Pearl?
I want to make clear the substance. We're going with the broadest possible. We're interested in any proposals with that specific. Okay. I just wanted to make sure that we were requesting what you were seeking.
Council members, any concern with the comments of Mr. Pearl? We're just going to put a broad advertisement out. Councilman Roth?
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Let's see what the public offers. They know how I feel about as far as the sale part of it goes and the annuity for the city. I'd be interested to see what we could attract going back out to the ICSC in Vegas. Not that I'd go out there. I went out there before, but our staff has been lucky to attract other businesses to the city, and one is on the corner of Chrome there and Flagler. So you can bring another one back like that, that'd be great. But yeah, I'm open to hearing the ideas and the thoughts and all those things with respect to my thoughts on selling or leasing or however we do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman, anything further?
Yeah, I guess I just want to add that I kind of saw both corners on Campbell Drive there as kind of twin projects, and if we were going to be going out to RFP for the YMCA building, old YMCA building, that we would kind of look at a twin project. And I would like to see what that, where that goes with Vegas and what we can come back with. I'm happy to see what comes of this venture, but no guarantees, and I really don't like to waste investors' time and energy in putting things together that won't go through. So just proceed with caution.
To clarify, are you kind of proposing or intimating that we consider commercial development of Harris Field?
I'm proposing that we present both locations as options to redevelop, whether one remains as a health center, commercial type of venue, but also a uniform vision with both sides of the street. So, I mean, that's just one idea. I didn't want to muddy the waters with our own perspectives. I liked the approach of going to Vegas with the properties, with all of Homestead, and seeing what comes of that. I think we're really premature right now.
All right. Is there anyone online or in the audience wishing to speak on this matter?
Seeing none online.
All right. Thank you. All right. So we have a motion and a second to authorize the manager to publish the 30-day notice with respect to the CRA property. Real quick question, though, before we get too far down the road.
Yes, sir.
Have you or are you aware, has your firm seen an instance of this layer of county approval? Any denials, and what kind of time frame are we talking about?
I'm not aware of denials, and I have to go back to the record because my understanding is that we went through this process actually when we disposed of property within the Park of Commerce. I think we would ask one of our representatives to sponsor it, and once we have contact with the county attorney's office for their review, I'll have a better sense of the timing of what that would look like.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's have a roll call vote, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Roth, Councilwoman Avila, Councilman Fletcher,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fairclough Staggers,
Yes.
Mayor Losner.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you. That's a big first step. All right. Anything further? Councilman Fletcher?
I would just like to put on the record, there is going to be a meeting tomorrow with Miami-Dade County and the police department, and they're talking about additional items for public safety in the future in regards to fire station support, In particular, we're looking at Station 66 that sits on the east side of town, just north of the park, just inside the Park of Commerce. And right now, there's currently not an on-site rescue that is assigned to that station. We've asked them to take a hard look at assigning a fire rescue unit to that facility full-time. It's my understanding that through the process, they are going to be assigning one there on a temporary basis for about 2 or 3 years while they build a new fire station. But I probably will be bringing to the council in a future meeting a resolution that will support the assignment of a permanent fire rescue facility there at Station 66. So that'll be coming up here in the next few meetings.
You've got until noon tomorrow to get it on the agenda for next week. Thank you, Councilman. Appreciate that. Councilman Roth? Councilwoman? Madam Manager?
Nothing, Mayor, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Attorney? Good, no executive sessions. Motion to adjourn? Moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Thank you.